The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. I held it at the kitchen table while my coffee went cold, staring at my own daughter's wedding invitation like it was written in a foreign language. Victoria Whitmore and Marcus Thornton request the honor of your presence, except they didn't. Not really, because tucked inside with the formal invitation was a handwritten note on Victoria's personal stationery. Her handwriting, the same careful cursive I'd watched her practice in 3rd grade. Dad, Marcus and I have decided on a small, intimate ceremony. Only immediate family and close friends, I know you'll understand. We'll celebrate together another time. Love, Tori. I read it 3 times. Then I set it down carefully, picked up my phone and called my doted. She answered on the 4th ring. Dad, hi. I was going to call you. I got the invitation. Silence. Then, carefully, I sent a note. Did you read it? I did. Small and intimate. Only immediate family. I kept my voice level. I'm your father, Victoria. I am immediate family. Dad, it's complicated. Explain it to me. Another pause. I could hear traffic in the background. She was driving. Marcus's family is paying for everything. His mother has very specific ideas about the guest list. We're trying to keep everyone happy. Everyone except me, apparently. That's not fair. You're making this about you when it's my wedding day. Her voice took on that defensive edge I'd heard too often lately. Marcus's parents are spending $60,000 on this wedding. $60,000, Dad. We can't just ignore what they want. $60,000. I'd paid for Victoria's entire college education, 4 years at University of Oregon, $32,000 a year plus room and board. I'd covered her car payments until she was 27. When Judith died 3 years ago, Victoria had lived with me for 8 months rent-free while she figured things out. But I didn't mention any of that. Instead, I asked the question that mattered. Does Marcus's mother have a problem with me specifically, or is this about something else? Victoria exhaled sharply. She thinks, look, you're just not part of their social circle, okay? The wedding is at the Grand Cascade. It's a certain type of event, black tie, very formal. She's worried about what? That I'll embarrass you. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I looked out the kitchen window at the backyard, the same yard where Victoria had played as a child, where Judith and I had hosted her birthday parties, her high school graduation celebration. So I'm not refined enough for the Thornton family. Dad, please don't make this harder than it already is. I'm not making anything hard, Victoria. You sent me a wedding invitation with a note telling me not to come. I'm just trying to understand why. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Either I'm invited to my daughter's wedding, or I'm not. Which is it? Long silence. Then quietly, Marcus's mother really feels strongly about the guest list, and he agrees with her. I'm trying to keep the peace, by excluding your father, by making everyone happy. Why can't you understand that? I understood perfectly. Marcus Thornton came from money, old Portland money, the kind that showed up in society pages and charity galas. His father owned 3 car dealerships. His mother sat on the board of the Portland Art Museum. They lived in a house in the West Hills that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. I was a retired high school math teacher. Judith had been a nurse. We'd lived comfortably, but modestly. We'd raised Victoria with love and attention and values we thought mattered. Apparently, we'd been wrong about what mattered. I understand completely, I said. Enjoy your wedding, Victoria. Dad, wait. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I didn't answer. It rang 4 more times over the next hour. Each time I watched it buzz and light up on the kitchen counter. Each time I let it go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to the messages. First message. Dad, please pick up. I don't want to leave things like this. Call me back. Second message. You're being unreasonable. I'm trying to explain the situation, and you're acting like I'm doing this to hurt you. That's not what's happening. Third message. Fine, if you're going to be stubborn about this, I don't know what else to say. The wedding is April. You're welcome to come if you want to be supportive instead of making everything about you. Fourth message. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Please call me back so we can talk about this like adults. I deleted all 4 messages. Then I sat at my kitchen table and did something I hadn't done since Judith's funeral 3 years ago. I cried. Not the loud, dramatic kind of crying you see in movies. Just quiet tears running down my face while I stared at a wedding invitation that felt like a rejection letter. My daughter was getting married, and she didn't want me there. The next morning I called Raymond Pierce. Ray had been my attorney for 20 years, handling our estate planning, Judith's probate, various small legal matters over the decade. He was also a friend. We played golf together twice a month, had beer and complained about Portland traffic. Clarence, good to hear from you. What's going on? I need to update my will. Okay, what kind of updates are we talking about? I told him about the wedding invitation, about Victoria's phone call, about being excluded from my own daughter's wedding because I didn't fit into her new life. Ray listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. That's rough, Clarence. I'm sorry. I want to change my will. Remove Victoria as beneficiary. Another pause. That's a big decision. Maybe give it a few days. See how you feel. I've given it all night. I'm not changing my mind. All right. Let's talk about what that looks like. I heard papers rustling. Currently, Victoria inherits everything. The house, your retirement account, life insurance, about $400,000 total. Where do you want that to go instead? I'd thought about this all night. Split it, half to the Oregon Teachers Fund, half to the American Nurses Association. In Judith's name, those are good organizations. Judith would have liked that. More rustling. I can have the paperwork ready by Friday. You'll need to come in to sign. I'll be there. Clarence, before we hang up, have you thought about telling Victoria about this? Why would I? Because she's your daughter. Because this might be a wake-up call she needs. Sometimes people don't realize what they're doing until they see the consequences. If she needs a financial incentive to want her father at her wedding, then we've already lost something that can't be fixed with a will. Ray sighed. You're probably right, but think about it anyway. I'll see you Friday. We hung up. I sat in my living room, looking at the photos on the mantel. Victoria at 5, missing her front teeth. Victoria at 12, holding up a soccer trophy. Victoria at teen, high school graduation, standing between Judith and me. All those years, all those memories, and now I wasn't good enough for the Thornton family's guest list. Fine. Friday afternoon, I drove to Ray's office downtown, 3rd floor of a brick building near the courthouse. His secretary, Margaret, greeted me with sympathetic eyes. She'd heard the story. He's ready for you, Mr. Whitmore. Ray's office was all dark wood and leather chairs. He had my new will laid out on the desk. Last chance to change your mind, he said, not unkindly. I'm sure. All right. He walked me through the changes. Victoria's name removed from every section. The Oregon Teachers Fund and American Nurses Association added as equal beneficiaries. A specific clause stating that Victoria was intentionally excluded. I signed on page 6. Ray witnessed. Margaret came in to witness. It was done in 10 minutes. I'll file this with probate court Monday, Ray said. And Clarence, I really am sorry about all this. Me too. I drove home. The house felt empty the way it had since Judith died, but now there was a different quality to the emptiness. Before it had been grief. Now it was something else. Disappointment, maybe, or the death of expectations. I'd always thought Victoria and I would have the kind of relationship where we could talk about anything, where she'd come to me with problems, where I'd be part of her important moments. I'd been wrong. The weeks crawled by. March became April. I heard nothing from Victoria. No phone calls, no texts, no emails. The silence was its own kind of answer. April 12th arrived. Saturday. Bright spring day. Cherry blossoms, blooming all over Portland. I woke up knowing that today was my daughter's wedding day. Today she would walk down an aisle at the Grand Cascade Hotel. Today someone would give her away. It wouldn't be me. I made coffee, read the newspaper, did the crossword puzzle. At 2 p.m., when I knew the ceremony was probably starting, I went to my workshop in the garage and spent 3 hours building a bookshelf. I didn't need. At 6 p.m., when I knew the reception was in full swing, I ordered pizza and watched a Blazers game. At 9 p.m., when I knew Victoria was probably dancing with her new husband, I went to bed. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying. Now I just felt numb. Sunday morning, I was in the backyard trimming the hedges when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Whitmore, this is Bethany Thornton, Marcus's mother. I nearly dropped the phone. Mrs. Thornton, I hope I'm not disturbing you. I got your number from Victoria. I wanted to call personally to thank you. Thank me for what? For being so understanding about the wedding arrangement. Victoria said you were very gracious about the guest list situation. These events are so complicated, you know. So many moving pieces. I'm sure you understand. I understood that she was calling the day after the wedding to rub salt in the wound, whether she knew it or not. I'm glad everything went well, I said neutrally. Oh, it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was elegant. Everyone said it was the loveliest wedding they'd attended in years. She paused. Victoria looked stunning. Of course. Marcus was so handsome. They're very happy. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I won't keep you. I just wanted to reach out. You raised a wonderful daughter, Mr. Whitmore. You should be very proud. I am. We said our goodbyes. I stood in my backyard, holding my phone, feeling something shift inside me. That numbness I'd felt yesterday was hardening into something else. Not anger exactly. Something colder. Resolution maybe. Monday morning, I was having breakfast when the doorbell rang. 8:30 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. Harold Bennett stood on my front porch, holding a newspaper. Clarence, you see this? Harold lived 3 houses down, retired accountant, widower, like me. We played chess sometimes, complained about the neighborhood association, traded books. He handed me the newspaper, folded open to the society page. There, taking up a quarter of the page, was a photo from Victoria's wedding. She looked beautiful in a white gown. Marcus handsome in his tuxedo. They were cutting a massive cake, smiling at each other. The caption read, Victoria Whitmore and Marcus Thornton celebrated their nuptials Saturday at the Grand Cascade Hotel. The bride is the daughter of the late Judith Whitmore. The groom is the son of Richard and Bethany Thornton of Portland, the daughter of the late Judith Whitmore. No mention of me at all, as if I didn't exist, as if I died along with my wife. I thought you should know, Harold said quietly. That's a hell of a thing. Yeah, it is. You okay? I'm fine, Harold. Thanks for showing me. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and headed back to his house. I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, and read the announcement again. The daughter of the late Judith Whitmore. They'd erased me completely. I pulled out my phone and texted Victoria. Saw the announcement in the paper. Interesting how you only have one parent. Dots appeared immediately. She was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a message came through. Dad, I didn't write that. The paper writes those announcements based on what the wedding planner submits. It wasn't intentional. I typed back, everything is intentional, Victoria. You just don't want to admit it. That's not fair. You're looking for reasons to be hurt. I don't need to look for reasons. You've given me plenty. I'm not doing this over text. If you want to talk, call me. I didn't call. Instead, I forwarded the newspaper photo to Ray Pierce with a message. Glad we updated that, Will. His response came an hour later. Jesus, Clarence. I'm sorry. That's cold. It was cold. But not as cold as being erased from your own daughter's life. The week passed slowly. I kept busy, worked in the garden, organized the garage, had lunch with Harold, played golf with Ray. Normal retired life, except nothing felt normal anymore. If this story reminded you of the injustices you've seen, follow the channel and turn on notifications. Because wherever justice is delayed, a new revenge story begins. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Victoria. I stared at her name on the screen for 3 rings before answering. Yes, Dad, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can I come over? I almost said no, almost told her that she'd made her choices and now she could live with them. But something in her voice stopped me. Not the defensiveness I'd heard before. Something else. Worry maybe. When? Now. I'm actually already in the neighborhood. I can be there in 5 minutes. Fine. She arrived in 4 minutes. Pulled into my driveway in her silver Audi. A gift from Marcus, I assumed. She'd never been able to afford a car like that on her dental hygienist's salary. I opened the door before she knocked. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, not the glowing bride from the society page photo. Come in. We sat in the living room, the same room where she'd grown up, where she'd done homework at that coffee table, where she'd watched movies with Judith and me on countless Friday nights. How was the honeymoon? I asked, not because I cared, but because the silence needed filling. We didn't go yet. We're leaving for Hawaii next week. She twisted her new wedding ring around her finger. Dad, I'm sorry about the newspaper announcement. I really didn't write it. Maybe not, but someone did. And you approved it, or Marcus did, or his mother did. Someone decided I wasn't worth mentioning. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Victoria? Explain it to me. She looked down at her hands. Marcus's mother handles all the society announcements. She has a relationship with the paper. She submits everything. I didn't even see it until after it was printed. And when you saw it, when you saw that your father had been completely erased from your wedding announcement, what did you do? Silence. You did nothing, I said, because that's what you've been doing all along. Nothing. You let Marcus and his family make every decision. You let them exclude me from your wedding. You let them pretend I don't exist. And you did nothing. I was trying to keep everyone happy. You keep saying that, but you never tried to keep me happy. You never tried to include me. You never stood up for me. I leaned forward. I raised you, Victoria. I paid for your education. I supported you through every difficult moment of your life. Your mother and I gave you everything we had. And the moment you found someone with more money, we became disposable. That's not true. Then prove it. Tell me one time in the past 6 months that you chose me over Marcus or his family. One time you stood up for me. One time you made me a priority. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. I can't, she whispered finally. I know. She started crying then. Not quiet tears like mine had been. Real sobs. Shoulders shaking. I don't know what happened. Everything got so complicated so fast. Marcus's family has all these expectations and I was trying so hard to fit in, and I lost sight of what mattered. Yes, you did. Can you forgive me? I looked at my daughter, 32 years old, successful career, new marriage, whole life ahead of her, and she was asking if I could forgive her for treating me like I didn't matter. I don't know, Victoria. I honestly don't know. What does that mean? It means I need time. It means you hurt me deeply. It means forgiveness isn't something you get just by asking for it. She wiped her eyes. I understand. I deserve that. Is there something else, a reason you came over besides apologizing for the newspaper? She hesitated. Actually, yes. Marcus and I need to talk to you about something. Both of us. Can he come over too? He's waiting in the car. Every instinct told me to say no, to send her away, to be done with this whole situation. But she was still my daughter, and maybe, just maybe, this was a chance to fix things. Fine. Tell him to come in. She went outside, came back a minute later with Marcus Thornton. I'd only met him 3 times before, brief, awkward encounters where he'd been polite but distant. He looked different now, uncomfortable, nervous, even. Mr. Whitmore, he said, extending his hand. Thank you for seeing us. I shook his hand. Didn't invite them to sit. Waited. Marcus glanced at Victoria. She nodded. Sir, I need to apologize, Marcus began. The way we handled the wedding was wrong. Excluding you was wrong. I let my mother push me into decisions that I knew weren't right, and I'm sorry. Why the change of heart? Because Victoria's been miserable since the wedding. Because I've been thinking about my own father and what it would feel like if someone treated him the way we treated you. Because it was wrong, and I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway. At least he was honest. Is that all? Another glance between them. Victoria spoke this time. Dad, we need help. Financial help. We're in trouble. And there it was. The real reason for this visit. Not guilt, not remorse. Need. What kind of trouble? Marcus took over. The wedding cost more than we planned. $65,000 total. My parents said they'd cover everything. But after the wedding, my mother said she'd only pay for half. She said it would be good for us to have financial responsibility in our marriage. So you owe $32,000. Yes, sir. We put it on credit cards thinking we'd pay it off quickly, but the interest is killing us. And Victoria and I just found out that my company is downsized. I'm probably losing my job. What do you do? Commercial real estate. The market's been rough. They're cutting 20% of staff and I'm likely on that list. I looked at Victoria. And you work at a dental clinic. You make what? $45,000 a year. 42, she said quietly. So you spent more than a year's salary on one day, on a wedding that was more about impressing people than celebrating your marriage. A wedding you didn't invite me to, Dad, and now you're here asking me for money. We're not asking for everything. Maybe 10 or 15,000 to help us get through this rough patch. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The audacity was almost impressive. You want me to give you $10,000 after you excluded me from your wedding, after you erased me from your announcement, after you made it clear that I don't fit into your new life. You want my money even though you didn't want me. Dad, please. No. I stood up. You made your choices, Victoria. You chose Marcus's family over your own. You chose status and money and image over the man who raised you. Now you get to live with those choices. We'll pay you back, Marcus said quickly. With interest. Whatever you want. We just need help getting through. I don't want your money, Marcus, and I'm not giving you mine. You two created this problem. You two can solve it. Dad, we're desperate. If Marcus loses his job, we can't make our rent. We'll have to move. We might lose everything. Then you'll learn a valuable lesson about spending money you don't have to impress people who don't matter. How can you be so cruel? Victoria's voice rose. I'm your daughter. Yes, you are. And a week ago you got married without me there. You celebrated the biggest day of your life and decided I wasn't important enough to attend. So forgive me if I'm not rushing to solve your problems now. So that's it? You're just going to let us? I'm going to let you handle your own consequences. That's what adults do. Marcus put his arm around Victoria. Let's go. This was a mistake. They walked to the door. Victoria turned back, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry I hurt you, Dad. I really am. But I needed you and you turned your back on me. No, Victoria. You turned your back first. I'm just done chasing after you. They left. I stood in my living room, listening to the Audi start up and drive away. My phone buzzed. Text from Harold saw them leave. You okay? I typed back, I'm fine. They asked for money. I said no. Good. They made their bed. I sat down in my recliner, the same chair where I'd sat with Judith 1,000 times, where we'd watched Victoria grow up, where we'd planned our retirement together before cancer took her. What would Judith think of all this, of our daughter excluding me from her wedding, then showing up asking for money? Judith would have been heartbroken, but she also would have said no. She'd always believed in natural consequences, in letting Victoria learn from her mistakes. This was Victoria's mistake to learn from. My phone rang. Ray Pierce, I'm taking you weren't home when the lawyer called. What lawyer? Someone named Bethany called my office an hour ago. Said she was Victoria's mother-in-law. Wanted to know about your estate planning. Said Victoria mentioned you'd recently updated your will. My stomach dropped. What did you tell her? Nothing. Attorney-client privilege. But she was fishing, Clarence. She knows something. Victoria must have mentioned it to Marcus, probably when they were planning this little visit. You think they came over to ask for money knowing you'd changed your will? I think they came over because they're desperate. The will might have given them extra motivation. Ray was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? Nothing. I already told them no. They're going to keep pushing. People get ugly when money's involved. Let them push. The answer stays no. We hung up. I sat in the growing darkness, not bothering to turn on lights. Outside, the spring evening was beautiful. Cherry blossoms, birds singing, that perfect Portland twilight. Inside, I felt hollowed out, not sad anymore, not angry, just empty. I'd lost my wife to cancer. Now I'd lost my daughter to greed and social climbing. The house felt bigger than ever. Too many rooms for one person, too many memories in every corner. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and keep living, keep going through the motions. But something fundamental had broken. Victoria and I weren't just in a fight that would blow over. We'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. What would you do at this point? Write it in the comments. Your thoughts are as important as the story itself. She'd chosen her new family over her old one. She'd excluded me from her wedding, erased me from her announcement, and only come back when she needed money. And I'd chosen to protect myself, to set boundaries, to say no. Neither of us could take those choices back now. The phone rang again. Victoria. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, each time voicemail. Finally, I turned the phone off entirely. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more texts, more pressure. Victoria wouldn't give up easily. Neither would Mark, and certainly not Bethany Thornton, who'd already called my lawyer fishing for information. But tonight, I just wanted silence. I sat in my dark living room, in Judas and my chair, and listened to the house settle around me. Somewhere in Portland, Victoria was in her expensive apartment, probably crying to Marcus about her heartless father who refused to help them. She'd tell their friends, tell the Thorntons, tell anyone who'd listen. I'd be the villain in her story. I could live with it because I knew the truth, and so did she, even if she wouldn't admit it. She hadn't just asked me for money tonight. She'd asked me to fix the consequences of her choices, to rescue her from a mess she'd created by prioritizing the wrong things. And for the first time in her life, I'd said no. The phone, sitting dark and silent on the end table, felt like a line I'd drawn in the sand. On one side, my daughter, her husband, her new family, their problems and demands. On the other side, me, my boundaries, my self-respect. I'd spent 68 years trying to do the right thing, trying to be a good husband, a good father, a good man. Maybe saying no was the rightest thing I'd done in a long time. Outside, night had fully fallen. The cherry blossoms were invisible now, but I knew they were there. Tomorrow they'd be blooming again, same as today. Life kept going, whether we were ready or not. I stood up, turned on a single lamp, and went to the kitchen. Made myself a sandwich I didn't really want. Ate it anyway. One meal at a time, one day at a time. That's how you survive losing everything that matters. You just keep going. The next morning started with 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. I turned my phone back on over coffee and watched the notifications flood in. 12 calls from Victoria, 3 from Marcus, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Bethany Thornton. The texts were a progression I could track without reading them. Victoria started apologetic, moved to defensive, then to angry, then to desperate. Dad, please answer. We need to talk. I know you're mad, but ignoring me won't solve anything. This is ridiculous. I'm your daughter. You can't just shut me out. Marcus lost his job today. Officially lost it. We have 30 days to vacate our apartment. Where are we supposed to go? I can't believe you're doing this to us. Mom would be ashamed of you. That last one landed like a punch. Bringing Judith into this, using her memory as a weapon, that was low, even for Victoria right now. I deleted all the messages without responding. The unknown number had left 2 voicemails. I listened to the first one. Mr. Whitmore, this is Bethany Thornton. I think there's been a misunderstanding about the wedding situation. Victoria's quite upset, and I feel partially responsible. I'd love to take you to lunch to discuss everything. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. Second voicemail. Same number, different tone. Miss Whitmore. Bethany Thornton. Again, I've spoken with my attorney, and there are some concerns about your recent estate planning changes. I think it would be in everyone's best interest if we could have a conversation. Call me. I played that one twice. She'd spoken with her attorney about my estate planning. The audacity was breathtaking. I called Ray Pierce. They're already threatening legal action, he answered, skipping the greeting. How did you know? Because Bethany Thornton's attorney called me an hour ago. Guy named Preston Hunt. Real piece of work. Wanted to know if you were of sound mind when you changed your will. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell in lawyer speak. But Clarence, they're building a case. If something happens to you, they're going to contest that will. On what ground? Undue influence, diminished capacity, any angle they can find. Preston mentioned that you're 68, recently widowed, potentially vulnerable to making rash decisions during emotional distress. That's insane. I'm a retired math teacher, not a dementia patient. I know that, but they'll argue it anyway, especially now that Marcus lost his job and they're desperate. Ray paused. There's something else. Preston asked if Victoria had any siblings. She's an only child. He knows that. Exactly. He's establishing that Victoria is your sole heir by default. If she contests the will, she's got a strong case that you're cutting out your only child without justification. I sat down at the kitchen table. What do I need to do? Document everything. Every interaction with Victoria, every phone call, every text. Keep a journal with dates and times. If this goes to court, we need to prove you were absolutely lucid and had valid reasons for your decisions. The valid reason is that she excluded me from her wedding and only came back when she needed money. That's emotional, not legal. We need more. Has she said anything threatening? Made any demands? I thought about the texts. She said Judith would be ashamed of me. That's manipulative but not threatening. Anything else? Bethany Thornton called fishing for information about my estate, left 2 voicemails. Want me to forward them? Definitely. That shows intent to interfere with your affairs. Send everything you've got. After we hung up, I forwarded the voicemails and screenshots of Victoria's texts. Then I opened a new document on my computer and started documenting every conversation since the wedding invitation arrived, every detail I could remember. The documentation took 3 hours. By the time I finished, I had 8 pages of single-spaced text, dates, times, exact quotes when I could remember. The pattern was clear even to me. Victoria had systematically chosen Marcus's family over me, then returned only when she needed financial help. I printed 2 copies. One went into a file folder, one went into my safe deposit box at the bank, drove there that afternoon specifically to store it. When I got home, Harold was standing in my driveway. Got a minute? He asked. Sure. We sat on my front porch. Same spot where Judith and I used to have coffee on Sunday mornings. Victoria came by my house this morning, Harold said. Wanted to know if I'd talked to you. Said you were being unreasonable. What did you tell her? I told her I wasn't getting in the middle of family business. But Clarence, she's desperate, started crying right there on my porch. Said they're going to lose everything and you're the only one who can help. Did she mention that she got married without inviting me to the wedding? She said it was complicated, that Marcus's mother made decisions she didn't agree with, said she was trying to keep the peace and it all went wrong. I looked at Harold. We'd known each other 15 years. He'd been at Judith's funeral. He'd helped me clean out her closet when I couldn't do it alone. He knew me. Do you think I'm being unreasonable? I asked. Harold was quiet for a long moment. I think you're hurt. I think you have every right to be hurt. But I also think Victoria's your daughter, and she's in real trouble. Trouble she created. True, but does that mean you let her drown? I'm not letting her drown. I'm letting her swim. There's a difference. Is there? I didn't answer. couldn't answer because that was the question I'd been asking myself since yesterday. Harold stood up. I'm not telling you what to do, just think about it, about whether this is really how you want things to end between you two. He walked back to his house. I sat on the porch watching the afternoon fade into evening. Was I being unreasonable? Was I letting hurt and anger cloud my judgment? Or was I finally setting boundaries that should have been set long ago? My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Whitmore, this is Marcus. I know you don't want to hear from us, but I'm begging you to reconsider. We have nowhere else to turn. Victoria's falling apart. Please. I stared at the message. Marcus, who'd gone along with excluding me from the wedding. Marcus, who'd let his mother control everything. Marcus, who'd only apologized when he needed money. Now he was begging. I typed a response. You're a grown man, Marcus. Figure it out. His reply came immediately. We will pay you back every penny. I'll sign a contract. Whatever you need. Please don't do this to Victoria. I'm not doing anything to Victoria. She did this to herself. She made mistakes. She knows that. But she's your daughter. Doesn't that mean something? I put the phone down. Didn't respond. Couldn't keep having the same conversation in circles. That night I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Judith's side of the bed empty like it had been for 3 years, wondering what she would say if she were here. Judith had been the peacemaker in our family, the one who smoothed over arguments, who found compromises, who kept everyone connected. Without her, we'd fallen apart. Victoria and I didn't know how to navigate conflict without Judith as the buffer. Around 2 a.m. I got up, went to the living room, pulled out the photo albums from the shelf, hours of pictures, Victoria as a baby, as a toddler, as a little girl, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, first day of school photos, soccer games, dance recitals, high school graduation, college graduation. Judith and I had been there for all of it, every milestone, every achievement, every disappointment. We'd been her foundation, her safety net, her biggest supporters, and now I wasn't even mentioned in her wedding announcement. I closed the albums, put them back on the shelf. The past didn't change the present. Those memories didn't obligate me to bail Victoria out of a mess she'd created. Friday morning brought a new development. Official letter from Preston Hunt, attorney at law, delivered by certified mail. Dear Mr. Whitmore, I represent Marcus and Victoria Thornton in a matter concerning potential elder financial exploitation and undue influence regarding your recent estate planning changes. My clients are concerned about your well-being and the circumstances surrounding these decisions. Please be advised that we are prepared to pursue all legal remedies available to protect your interests and those of your lawful heir. I strongly encourage you to seek independent legal counsel immediately. We request a meeting at your earliest convenience to discuss these matters. Sincerely, Preston Hunt Esquia, Elder, Financial Exploitation. They were actually claiming someone was taking advantage of me, when the only people who'd tried to get money from me were Victoria and Marcus themselves. I called Ray immediately. Already got a copy, he said. Preston faxed it to my office this morning. It's an intimidation tactic. It's working. I'm intimidated. Don't be. This letter is more threat than substance. He's trying to scare you into changing the will back. What do I do? Nothing. Don't respond. Don't engage. I'll send him a letter stating that you have legal representation and all further communication should go through me. And Clarence, this actually helps us. How? Because it shows their motive clearly. They're not concerned about your well-being. They're concerned about their inheritance. When this goes to court, if it goes to court, this letter proves they're financially motivated. So we just wait. We wait and we document. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep records of every contact they make. That afternoon, Victoria showed up at my house. Didn't call first. Just appeared on my porch around 3 p.m. I saw her through the window. She looked worse than before, hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She'd been crying, that was obvious, even from a distance. I debated not answering, but she'd just keep knocking, keep coming back. Better to face it now. Subscribe and stay tuned so you don't miss any true revenge stories. Sometimes even silence is the strongest form of revenge. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Dad, please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Your attorney already said everything you needed to say. That wasn't me. That was Marcus's mother. She hired Preston without asking us. We didn't know he was going to send that letter. But you knew she'd hired an attorney to look into my estate planning. Victoria looked down. She mentioned it. I told her not to, but she did it anyway. She says she's protecting us. From what? From me. From making a mistake. She thinks you're not thinking clearly because of Mom. Because of being alone. She means well. She means to control my money. Dad, please, can we not do this on the porch? Can I come in? Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She came in, stood in the living room like she'd never been there before, awkward, uncertain. Sit, I said. She sat on the couch. I took the recliner, distance between us that felt geographical. Marcus and I are losing the apartment, she said without preamble. We can't make rent next month. His severance package was smaller than expected because he hadn't been there 2 years yet. I'm picking up extra shifts at the clinic, but it's not enough. Where will you go? We don't know. Marcus's parents offered to let us stay with him, but she trailed off. But Bethany will make your lives miserable with her control and expectations. Yeah, you could get a smaller apartment, something you can actually afford. We've been looking, but we need first and last month's rent, plus deposit. That's $6,000 we don't have. And with Marcus's job loss on his record, most places won't even consider us. I said nothing, just waited. Dad, I know I don't deserve your help. I know I hurt you, but I'm drowning here, and I don't know what else to do. You could sell things. The car, for instance. That Audi must be worth something. It's leased, and we're underwater on the lease. The wedding gifts. You must have gotten expensive gifts from the Thorntons' friend. We returned most of them for cash, to pay down the credit cards. It barely made a dent. So you've tried everything except actually changing your lifestyle. Her head snapped up. That's not fair, isn't it? You spent $65,000 on one. You lease an expensive car you can't afford. You live in an apartment that's clearly beyond your means. And when it all falls apart, you come to me to fix it. Because you're my father. Because that's what family does. Family. Like how you treated me like family when you got married, without me. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't make it hurt less, Victoria. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry is just a word you use when you want something. She started crying. Again, I was getting tired of the tears. They'd stopped working on me somewhere around the 10th call. What do you want from me? She sobbed. What will it take for you to forgive me? I don't know. Maybe time. Maybe changed behavior. Maybe proof that you actually care about me as a person and not just as a bank account. I do care about you. Then prove it. Without asking for money. Without bringing Marcus's mother and her lawyers into it. Without manipulating me with tears and guilt. Prove that I matter to you for reasons other than what I can give you. She wiped her eyes. How? I don't know, Victoria. That's something you need to figure out yourself. We sat in silence. The clock on the mantel ticked. Outside, a dog barked. Normal afternoon sounds in a conversation that felt anything but normal. Can I ask you something? Victoria said finally. Go ahead. Did you really change your will? Cut me out completely? Yes. Because of the wedding? Because of a lot of things. The wedding was just the final straw. But everything goes to charity? Nothing to me at all? That's right. She struggled for words. That's cruel, Dad, is it? You made it clear I don't fit into your new life. Why should my money fit into it? Because I'm your daughter. Because you're supposed to leave things to your children. I'm supposed to leave things to people I trust. People who valued me while I was alive. Not just what I'd leave behind when I died. So that's it? One mistake and I lose everything? One mistake? Victoria, you've made 100 mistakes. Small ones and big ones. And I forgave all of them until you crossed a line I couldn't ignore anymore. She stood up. I should go. Probably. At the door, she turned back. What if I prove it? What if I show you that I care about you for the right reasons? Would you change the will back? Maybe. Maybe not. That's not why you should do it. Then why should I? Because it's the right thing to do. Because I'm your father and I deserve better than how you've treated me. Because relationships matter more than money. I paused. But if you're only doing it to get the will changed, don't bother. I'll know. And it won't work. She left without another word. I watched through the window as she got into a Uber, not the Audi. Probably couldn't afford the lease payments anymore. Part of me felt guilty, watching her leave like that. Obviously suffering, obviously desperate. Part of me wanted to call her back, write her a check, fix everything like I'd always fixed things before. But the larger part, the part that had been growing since that wedding invitation arrived, knew that this was necessary for both of us. Victoria needed to learn that actions had consequences, that relationships required effort and respect, that you couldn't just take and expect the other person to keep giving. And I needed to learn how to set boundaries, how to protect myself, how to say no even when it hurt. The weekend passed quietly. No more visits from Victoria, no more threatening letters from attorneys, just silence. Monday morning I was reading the paper when my doorbell rang. Harold, again. You've got company, he said. Black Mercedes just pulled up. Woman in a business suit, looks expensive. Bethany Thornton, had to be. Sure enough, she walked up the path 30 seconds later. Designer suit, perfect hair. The kind of confidence that came from never being told no. I opened the door before she knocked. Mr. Whitmore, may I come in? No, she blinked. Apparently people didn't say no to her often. I think we should talk. I think you should leave my property. I'm trying to help my daughter-in-law. You're trying to control my estate. There's a difference. That's not. Look, can we please just have a civilized conversation? You hired an attorney to investigate my mental capacity. You sent threatening letters. You called my lawyer without my permission. What part of that suggests you want a civilized conversation? Preston was overzealous. I've already spoken to him about that. But Miss Whitmore, you have to understand, Victoria and Marcus are in real trouble. They need help. Then help them yourself. You've got money, write them a check. It's not that simple. It's exactly that. You spent $65,000 on a wedding that was more about showing off than celebrating a marriage. Now you can spend some money fixing the problems that wedding created. I'm not going to enable their poor financial decisions. I almost laughed. But you expect me to enable them. You're her father. That's different. How convenient. I'm her father when it's time to pay bills, but I wasn't important enough to be at her wedding. Bethany's expression hardened. That was a complex situation. No, it was. You didn't want me there because I didn't fit your image of what Victoria's family should be. I'm just a retired teacher, not someone impressive enough for your society friends. That's not true. Then why wasn't I mentioned in the wedding announcement? Why did you list Victoria as daughter of the late Judith Whitmore like I didn't exist? That was an oversight. Everything is an oversight when you get caught, but it wasn't an oversight. It was intentional, just like excluding me from the wedding was intentional. Bethany took a breath, visibly composing herself. Mr. Whitmore, I'm trying to apologize. I made mistakes in how I handled things. I was thinking about the wedding as an event, not about the family relationships involved. I'm sorry. It was probably the most honest thing she'd said, but it didn't change anything. Thank you for the apology, but my decision stands. You're going to let your daughter become homeless. She's not going to be homeless. She's going to face consequences. She's going to learn to live within her means. She's going to grow up. She's 32 years old. Then it's past time for this lesson. Bethany's composure cracked. Fine. If you won't help willingly, we'll pursue other options. Preston says we have a strong case for undue influence. Preston's wrong. We'll see what a judge says. Yes, we will. And that judge will see documented proof that the only people trying to influence me are you and your son. Every letter, every call, every threat. My lawyer has it all. She stared at me. You're really not going to help them. I'm really not. Then you're not the man I thought you were. Victoria said you were kind, generous. The kind of father who'd do anything for his daughter. I was that man, but that man kept getting taken advantage of, so I changed. Bethany walked back to her Mercedes without another word. I watched her drive away, then close the door. Harold appeared on my porch 5 minutes later. That looked intense. She threatened to sue me. Can she do that? She can try. Won't get anywhere, but she can try. Clarence, are you sure about this? About all of it? I looked at Harold, really looked at him. 70 years old, widowed for 8 years, 3 kids who called him every week and visited at least once a month. His family worked because there was mutual respect, mutual effort. I'm sure, I said. I've spent 6 decades doing the right thing, being responsible, being generous. And you know what I learned? Sometimes the right thing is saying no. Sometimes the generous thing is letting people solve their own problems. Even if they fail, especially if they fail, because that's how they learn. Harold nodded slowly. Judith would be proud of you. I hope so. I really hope so. That night, I sat down and wrote Victoria a letter. Not an email, not a text, a real letter, handwritten, the way people used to communicate when words mattered. Dear Victoria, your mother and I spent 32 years raising you. We taught you values we thought were important: integrity, kindness, respect, responsibility. We gave you everything we could, not just material things, but time and attention and love. Somewhere along the way, you lost sight of those values. Maybe it was gradual. Maybe it happened all at once when you met Marcus and his family. I don't know. What I do know is that the daughter I raised would never have excluded me from her wedding, would never have erased me from her life announcement, would never have come back, only when she needed money. You made choices, Victoria. You chose status over substance. You chose image over integrity. You chose what looked good over what was actually good. Now you're facing the consequences of those choices. And instead of owning them, you want me to rescue you from them. You want me to teach you that it's okay to make selfish decisions as long as someone else will pay for them. I can't do that, won't do that. Not because I don't love you. I do love you. I've loved you since the moment you were born, and I'll love you until the day I die. But love doesn't mean enabling. Love doesn't mean removing all consequences. Sometimes love means letting people face their mistakes so they can learn from them. That's where we are now. If you want a relationship with me, a real relationship, not one based on what I can give you, that door is open, but it requires real change, real effort, real respect. The ball is in your court, Victoria. What happens next is entirely up to you. Love, Dad. I sealed it in an envelope, addressed it, put a stamp on it, drove to the post office, and dropped it in the mail slot. Then I went home and waited. 2 days later, I got a response. Not a letter, a text. Got your letter. You're right about everything. I messed up, not just once, but over and over. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Not because of the money, because you're my dad, and I miss you. Can we start over? I stared at the message for 10 minutes, reading it over and over, looking for manipulation, for hidden motives, for the Finally, I replied, starting over takes time, but we can start trying. Come over Sunday for dinner. Just you, no Marcus, no agenda, no discussion of money, just dinner. I'll be there. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Sunday arrived. I made pot roast, the way Judith used to make it, Victoria's favorite. Set the table with actual plates and napkins instead of paper towels. At 5:55 she knocked on the door. She looked different, hair pulled back, simply, minimal makeup, jeans and a sweater, not trying to impress anyone, just Victoria. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetheart. Come in. Dinner was awkward at first. Small talk about weather, about her work at the dental clinic, about my garden, safe topics, neutral ground. Halfway through the meal, she set down her fork. I need to say something. Okay, I've been seeing a therapist. Started 2 weeks ago. We talk a lot about boundaries, and people pleasing, and why I let Marcus's family control everything. I didn't respond, just listened. She helped me see that I've been trying so hard to be what other people wanted, that I lost track of who I actually am. And in the process, I hurt the one person who'd always loved me exactly as I was. Your mother loved you too, I know, but she's gone, and I almost lost you the same way, by pushing you away until you couldn't take it anymore. What changed? Why now? Victoria looked down at her plate. Because I hit rock bottom, lost the apartment, lost the car, moved into Marcus's parents' basement, and you know what? It was the best thing that could have happened. How? Because I finally saw what I'd traded you for. A life that looked good but felt hollow. A family that had money but no real love. A marriage that was built on image instead of substance. How's Marcus handling all this? Not well. He's angry at me for making everything worse with you. Angry that we're living with his parents. Angry that I'm not just doing whatever his mother wants anymore. And I'm realizing I might have made a mistake marrying him, or at least I married him for wrong reasons. This was dangerous territory. I treaded carefully. That's something you need to figure out yourself. I know that's part of what therapy is for. She looked up. But regardless of what happens with Marcus, I need to fix things with you, not because of the will, because you're my dad and I love you, and I was wrong. What does fixing things look like to you? I don't know. What does it look like to you? I thought about it. Honesty, effort, showing up, not just when you need something, but because you want to be here. Respecting my decisions even when you don't agree with them. Building trust slowly, over time. I can do that. Can you? Because trust is easy to break and hard to rebuild. I know, but I want to try. We finished dinner, did dishes together, the way we used to when she was a teenager. She washed, I dried. Simple rhythm, familiar motion. At the door, she hugged me. Really hugged me, not just the quick social hug she'd been given for years. Thank you for giving me another chance, she whispered. Thank you for wanting one. After she left, I sat in my recliner and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Maybe we wouldn't fully repair what had been broken. Maybe some damage was permanent, but maybe, just maybe, we could build something new, something different, but still good. That was enough for now. 3 months later, Victoria came to dinner every Sunday. Sometimes she brought Marcus, who was slowly learning to respect boundaries. Sometimes she came alone. Always, she showed up. She never mentioned the will, never asked for money, just worked on being a daughter instead of a financial burden. I watched her change, saw her start dressing for herself instead of for Marcus's family, saw her stand up to Bethany, saw her make decisions based on her values instead of other people's expectations. Was everything perfect? No. We still had difficult conversations, still had moments of tension, but we were talking, working through it. 6 months after the wedding, I wasn't invited to. Ray Pierce called. I need to update your will anyway for tax purposes. Do you want to change anything else? I thought about Victoria, about Sunday dinners, about slow progress and hard-won trust. Yeah, I said. Put Victoria back in as beneficiary, 50-50 with the charities. You sure? I'm sure. She earned it. I never told Victoria about the change. Didn't need to. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about a father and daughter learning how to love each other better, and that was worth more than any inheritance.